Feminine is a dimension, not a gender. You need Devi's grace. One who's touched by this grace will naturally rise in ways that other people will think is miraculous. Many men are there in the world in the last 2 centuries who have risen to great heights in whatever they were doing because in some way they were in feminine worship. This winter, you must learn how to be restful. Easy in the body and in the mind, very important. We are also coming towards the 11th anniversary of Bhairavi consecration. Ideal time. Oh. So this is what I was afraid of. I told you, at the time of consecration, I fear this, that slowly you guys will become fans of Bhairavi because she's a kind of a star and you'll start ignoring Shiva. I said Shiva, you said nothing. Bhairavi, ooh! This is what I expressed 11 years ago. I fear she will become more popular because there is a little give and take with her. With him, no give, no take. In many ways, Bhairavi is more appealing because there is a little transaction. So this is 11th here, and you know her phone number is 11. Hello? I think you came on 111, right, just now. To III. Whichever way you came, if you came from Nashville, you exited on 111. If you came from Atlanta, you drove on Highway 111. Anyway and this is the 11th year where we are opening up certain possibilities of sadhana. Till now, Devi sadhana or Bhairavi sadhana was available only for women. This year they're losing that privilege. Men also are getting into Devi sadhana. See, she's popular. So what is the significance of this worship of the feminine? One important thing that you need to understand is, feminine is not a gender, it is a dimension. If I utter the word feminine, you're thinking of a gender. No, it is not a gender, it is a certain dimension of life. The significance of this dimension is, it's easier to get response from this dimension than the other dimension that we consider as masculine, because it is designed in a different way. It's not about which is better than which, there's no such thing. It's just different. A fool can start an argument, which is better than which. This is like, is the earth better or sky better? Those who are up on the earth or the planet are looking up at the sky. You know, I spent a long time watching the eagles and hawks, the grey hawks in India. I spent a special amount of time in my life watching them because of the incredible way they can fly. And from 8, 9 years of age, I was dreaming of flying. So I watched and watched and watched. And what I found was, all these glorious flying creatures who are such, I don't want to go into the detail, but you must look it up. Some of these hawks, their capabilities of flying is way better than a fighter jet. I'm not saying it goes as fast, but for the body it has, for the volume it has, what it does with its wings and its body is so absolutely incredible. But as I watched them, fascinated by their flight, I only looked at their wings and their tail, how it moves, what the feathers are doing. Then I noticed all these birds which are flying up there, in our view, a glorious flight. The only thing that they're doing is constantly looking down at the earth. Have you noticed this? They're never looking at the sky and enjoying it. They're only looking down at the earth all the time. Of course for food, or just because they enjoy the planet Earth the way it looks. But human beings who cannot fly are looking up all the time. So then I thought through this and just thinking, isn't it better that you're a chicken and you're looking up at the sky, rather than being an eagle, looking down all the time? Because one who looks up naturally rises, one who looks down naturally come down. One is at least aspirational. Another is wanting to go down. So feminine is a dimension, not a gender. There are fantastic examples. Me also, a living example of that, but I don't like to put myself in that direction because of all these Bhairavi fans who are here, they'll all go berserk. But let me tell you of ancient examples. One more recent example is Ramanujam. All of you have heard of him, a mathematician. There was also a movie about him a few years ago, of how Ramanujam poured out mathematics, very complex mathematical formulae, to a point where in early 20th century, when there was no concept of black holes, he kind of created mathematics describing black holes. Always in scientific process or scientific research, first is a theory, a conceptualization of what it could be, and then trying to prove it with either empirical proof, if that is possible, but for other aspects, mathematical proof. But he produced math before there was a concept. Even today, it's being figured out what exactly is all this about. But he just poured out mathematics. When people asked him, where is this coming from? Simply notebooks and notebooks of math he just poured out. Sitting on his deathbed, he died very early, unfortunately. He said, my devi, my goddess, bleeds mathematics. There's another more colorful example. His name was Kalidasa, that means a slave of Kali, a devotee of Kali, let's say. Somewhere 25 centuries ago, Kalidasa, during the time of Chandragupta Maurya, I think, or even before that, a little before that probably, the story goes like this. You know, stories get little extra frills on the way, but the important thing is what it's trying to say, not the factuality of the story, but the spirit of the story. So for many lifetimes, Kalidasa was a great devotee of Kali. So in his previous lifetime, he was deeply disappointed that in spite of all his devotion, she did not appear. She did nothing for him. So he died little disappointed with her. After all these lifetimes of wooing, she doesn't respond. So in his present life, where his name was something else, we don't know what his name was, he was born as a little bit of a simpleton. When he was a grown man, he had the mind of an 8-year-old. So generally, when you're 8 years, for who you are, people think you're cute. When you become 18 and still remain the same way, they say you're a bloody fool. Hello? Yes or no? So this happened to him, everybody thought he's the village fool. And the king of the local king who was there, he had a daughter who considered herself very intelligent. Maybe she was. And she wanted to marry an intelligent man. And ladies, you know it's hard to find one. Because if he was that smart, why would he marry you? See, a joke is a double-edged sword, okay? So whoever came to marry her, from many kingdoms, because she can only marry a prince, many of them came and she rejected all of them as fools. He said, they're not fit for me. After not only rejecting these suitors, also insulting them as fools, slowly many kings around this small kingdom became the enemies of this kingdom because they were not only refused, they were called fools by this girl. So the father, facing political and military pressure from all around, he got so mad with the girl and he said, you idiot, the thing is, I must get you married to the worst fool in our kingdom. Only then you will learn your lesson. So he scolded her nicely and told his men to go and find who is the dumbest idiot in our kingdom. Find that guy, I want him to marry my daughter. So they went looking here and there. Then they saw in this village, a young man was sitting on the wrong side of the branch and was cutting the branch. Like how we as a generation of people are doing ecologically. You know, we belong to that category, all of us. They saw, this can't be any more stupid than this, he's cutting the branch on which he's sitting, and when he succeeds, he will fail. Right now, that's where we as a generation are. When we succeed, we will fall. Our idea of success is right now so destructive. So anyway, they caught this guy and took him and said, there can't be a worse fool than this. So he is fit to marry the princess. They got them married forcefully. But the girl took it out on him, every day, every moment insulting him in 1,000 different ways, reviling him in many ways possible. After a few months, even this guy who was very simple-minded, even he felt very insulted because she had a sharp tongue. It's been masked these days, but so one day he left the palace and went away into the forest just to escape the sharpness of her tongue. Then there was an old Kali temple in the forest. Usually Kali temples are deep in the jungles because the rituals are of a certain kind which society may not be willing to swallow. The normal society may not be able to digest the type of rituals that happen in the Kali temples many times. So, always deep in the jungles. So he went into the Kali temple. You know, to escape one woman, he has to go to another. He went and put his head at her feet and started banging his head, not knowing any prayer or mantra or chant or anything, he just started banging his head at her feet. And his head started bleeding as drops of blood fell on her feet. He had locked himself because he was afraid soldiers will come, find him and again take him back to his wife. Then he heard a voice from outside and it said, "I'm Kali, I've come, open the door." By now he was so furious that for these lifetimes you did not come. He remembered everything suddenly, he said, "For these lifetimes I prayed, I chanted, I worshipped, you did not come. Now what the hell have you come? I'm not going to open the door." Then Kali repeatedly called him, "Please open the door." Then just to taunt her, because he's still an 8-year-old boy, he opened the door a crack and put his tongue out toward her. And she struck his tongue. And one who was considered the kingdom's most profound fool suddenly becomes a great scholar who… This is something that's attributed to Kalidasa. Kalidasa is considered in India as, in terms of literature and poetry, greater than Shakespeare. They compare… comparative studies of Kalidasa and Shakespeare exists in India, and many scholars rate him as way above in his language, in his mastery of language, in his understanding and how he expressed himself. Very little of his work is left, unfortunately, but in spite of that, that little work is of phenomenal quality. So suddenly he started composing poetry and literature. Just like that, he could sit in a place and simply recite poetry, not written, simply like that. So his tongue became of such exuberance of quality that he could just recite new verses just like that. So because Kali struck his tongue, now that you're masked, Bhairavi may not be able to strike your tongue, maybe she knocks… I hope she knocks you on your head. Hello? So, these are little magnified stories, but it is not out of sync with what can happen. One who attains to the grace of the Devi, whatever you're doing in your life, you may be a business person, you may be a professional in something, you may be an artist, a musician, a yogi, whatever you are, if you want to pitch up your activity to another dimension of, doing things, you need Devi's grace. One who's touched by this grace will naturally rise in ways that other people will think is miraculous. This has happened to many people, I must tell you this. There have been significant men in the world, I don't want to name them now because it is politically sensitive. Significant men, just look up history, in the last 2 centuries, who were nurtured by their mothers and in some way, in their perception, The mother remained like a goddess, she did not come down to become a loving mother. She remained a goddess being hard on the child. Many men are there in the world in the last 2 centuries who have risen to great heights in whatever they were doing because in some way they were in feminine worship. Because articulation, and when I say articulation, not just verbal articulation, articulation essentially means you're able to find expression. If you want to find expression in the world, you need Devi's grace. Whether you do it by chanting a mantra, whether you do it by going to a temple, or whether you do it by acknowledging that dimension within yourself, or whether you do it by looking up to something that is feminine, or simply by being in nature. It doesn't matter how you do it, but that dimension that we refer to as feminine, when it yields to you, your articulation or your expression in the world will find tremendous enhancement. This is the 11th year, this is why we are opening this up for men also, the Bhairavi sadhana. Because as all married men at least have realized, definitely women are more articulate than you, at least in the domestic situations. Hello. So, after this 11th year association with the Devi, you could become equally or more articulate than her and the scene at home will change significantly. This happened. One day Shankaran Pillai was in bed. It was already 2 a.m. He was rolling and turning around, twisting and tossing and saying, this is an Indian way of expressing frustration. You know, even love, anger, frustration, depression, everything has cultural expressions, hello? Indian way of saying I'm frustrated is so his wife, who was lying next to him, and she also couldn't sleep because he was turning and tossing like this, she said, "What is the matter with you? It's 2 o'clock in the morning." He said, "See, our neighbor Jake, you know, I owe him $1,000 and I told him that tomorrow morning I will give it to him. But I cannot give it to him." She asked, "Why?" He said, "I don't have it." She looked at him in a disgusting way. No sound, okay? She just got up, went to the window, opened the window and screamed, "Jake! Jake!" Loudly, "Jake! Jake! Jake! Jake!" In the middle of the night, Jake opened the window and said, "What, Mrs. Pillai, what happened?" "The $1,000 that my husband owes to you, he's not going to give it to you tomorrow because he ain't got it." She banged the window closed and came and slept. She said, "You sleep now, it's Jake's problem." Feminine ways of solving problems, sometimes useful. So, especially with the pandemic on, you will need a certain type of intelligence, otherwise you'll become depressed. "That's okay, Sadhguru, but I've lost my job." You need a certain kind of function of intelligence for you to go through this phase. Because this phase is not going to be just over because they release the vaccine today or tomorrow. They would have released it today, but Sunday nobody works, so it must be tomorrow. Virus works though. So, that's not going to be a magic wand for you. You will need your own magic wand of intelligence where you will learn to thrive through these times. Important. It's very important for you, for your physical well-being, for your professional, financial, social well-being. You must learn how to survive in times where you have to put your head down and walk. Hello? When you're walking like this, it's one way of attaining success. When you walk down like this, another way of success, another completely different measures for success are needed. So, the coming year, virus may still be there. Let's not suffer the virus. Let us earn the grace of Bhairavi. And this is Shiva's month. Hey! Not bad, my man. Restful, not all this activity, articulation, no. Restful. Rest is fantastic. Lethargy is bad, depression is horrible. Don't go in that way. This winter, you must learn how to be restful. Easy in the body and in the mind, very important. Enjoy this winter, okay?